Great. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the AEM Experience Manager, EMEA Champion Office Hours. This is our first office hours for EMEA, and we're so happy and so excited you could join us here today. So today we have our fellow champions with us. We have Kimon waving hello and welcome. Myself, we have Martin with us. Cindy, we have Greg, we have Rami, we have a full house here to answer questions as we go along. And today we'll be talking a little about Edge Delivery Services, as well as some other questions that you might have on your mind that you want to drop into the chat. So we look forward to being with you. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Please take time to use your phone and log on into that QR code. This will give you access to hours for the user groups, also the YouTube channel, office hours. So you can, just better self-serve there and join us on further webinars and office hours. Last but not least, our office hours can be found when you use that QR code, leads to this page. We have our monthly Ask Me Anything webinars. Our topics do change monthly, but we find that they're relevant to all AEM users and no matter of experience level. And what we love to see is please give us your input on what you would like us to dive into, how we can help you, how we can also leverage our network to make your life a little bit easier and richer around AEM. And as a practitioner and developer, you can also pre-submit the questions, or you can drop them in here, right at this chat. And if you sign up, then you'll be notified of the next office hours. So I am a co-host today. I'm Kelly, and hopefully we might have met at the Sunstar Summit along with my colleagues and champions here. And I think we're ready to get going. I'll let everyone say a quick hi in case and let them introduce themselves if they haven't yet. I don't know, Cindy, if you want to kick off.
Sure. Hi, I'm Cindy Underwood. I'm located in the States. I work for LPL Financial. Nice to meet everybody.
Thanks, Cindy. Greg.
Hey everyone, this is Greg Demers, AEM Champions, along with the rest here, and I'm on the East Coast of the United States as well, working for T. Rowe Price in the financial industry, and great to have you here. Please subscribe to our channel, and you'll be notified when all these sessions are coming out, either Europe, EMEA, or APAC, or North America. So welcome and great to have you here. I'll pass it on to Rami, I guess.
You guess. I don't know. Should I take that to heart? So name is Rami El Gamal. I am also a fellow AEM champ. I currently am the director of Renee Consulting, just a small consulting firm that does everything Adobe. And happy to be here to answer your questions and have fun with the rest of the team. And honestly, I don't know who's missing. Martin, do you want to go?
Yeah, so Martin Noble. I'm based in the UK. I work for IBM and head up a team within XO, which is part of the wider IBM, and we specialize in the Adobe stack. I guess last one would be Kimon.
Last one will be Kimon. Thank you, Martin. Good to see you, everyone. My name is Kimon. I am based in Munich, Germany, so CEST time zone. I'm also one of the AEM champions for this year, and I currently work for Deloitte Digital here in Germany. Good to see you all.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Last but not least, I'm Kelly. I'm based in Switzerland. I work for Sunstar and lead digital transformation strategy and services. And we're a very full stack Adobe house here. Happy to be here and happy to meet you. And I guess let's dive in, right?
Yep.
So first,
pre-submitted questions, or how did you want to?
I think the pre-submitted questions were all around basics or less is more of Edge Delivery Services and why Edge Delivery Services. So I think Kelly has some really valuable goodies here to present, hands-on experience from Sunstar. So I think we'll be answering the questions through this, but I think people should feel free to submit their questions also in the chat throughout the flow of this call.
Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of pick up where we left off at the Adobe Summit. And for anyone who, I'm just going to share my screen again. There we go. So you can see my screen. So at the Adobe Summit, I had the pleasure of presenting Sunstar transformation story and how we're working with Edge Delivery Services. So if you saw or were able to tune into that presentation, I'm going to give a little update since then. And if not, I'm just going to run you through just a few facts or, the story of why we moved to Edge. Because there are these questions around Edge, and it's a really exciting time, I think, to be working with AEM sites in Edge Delivery Services. So I'm just going to hop into quickly why Sunstar went to Edge, just for some context, and I didn't include the whole story in this deck for this webinar, but Sunstar has been working with AEM since 2018. And we started on premise in 2021. We moved to AEM Cloud, had a migration there of 26 websites in 13 languages. And then just last year, we started experimenting with Edge Delivery Services, not because we weren't happy with sites. That installation is running really well. And now we have 33 websites, I think 34 websites running on AEM sites, but we had some other needs internally, such as corporate communications. So we have some corporate sites and some smaller microsites that needed attention, and they were running on platforms that just weren't really performing. So we started experimenting in-house as a solution to help our corporate services, but also then as a proof of concept. How could we start small with EDS and experiment without disrupting some of our other operations? So to Sunstar's marketing technology mission, and that's what I head up with the team of, we have a team of 9 at Sunstar, and our whole mission is really just to place these easy to use tools in the hands of marketers so they can market and really do their job anytime, anywhere. And Adobe is really helping us with that. This is an overview of kind of how we are broken out now between sites and EDS and the amount of users we're serving, also with the headcount that we have dedicated to the services. So just to give a little bit of scope and how we manage internally, we don't have a lot of technical staff. We're more business technologists, and then we work with our partner. So that kind of gives the scope. And what we're focusing on here is on sunstar.com. There are 3 corporate websites, sunstar.com, and then engineering, and also a foundation site. And these sites really tell the story of who Sunstar is. On the left-hand side, we have our product brand that runs on sites, and that services the Western Hemisphere, about 31 sites and 13 languages there. So last year, our corporate communications team, they were really having a lot of problems with their websites. They were on WordPress, and WordPress was really, it was just falling short. So in short, it was costing us a lot of money for non-performance, and it was a real hassle for our business users, our corporate communications team. They weren't able to really update content on their own. So we moved to Edge as a part of a Lighthouse VIP program at Adobe to really showcase within Switzerland, be one of the first customers to go to Edge. And here are a few reasons of why. So if anyone is in the audience thinking about why I'd want to go to Edge, here are the 4 main reasons for us. Our team had no authoring autonomy. They were tied to technical staff. They had a very low performing CMS. It was WordPress. It was really on life support. And all of the investment that we were putting into WordPress was really just technical to keep it alive. There was no additional budget left for content, for SEO, for UX. We also have very small teams in-house working for corporate communications, which is very often the case. And with these limited resources, we just need something that was just easier for business to manage on their own. And we kind of wanted to move from really the support and maintenance to performance. So those were some of the pain points. And this is kind of a snapshot of where we were before we moved to Edge on WordPress, and then how it looked afterwards. So the dream of, if we go to Edge, do we really improve in terms of Lighthouse scores? The answer is absolutely yes. So we've launched 3 sites across the board. We've elevated all of the Lighthouse scores. Really, also months later, now we're a good 8 months into one of the websites being on Edge. The others migrated a little after that. And we're still netting out at about 100, maybe sometimes 98, depending. And we still haven't invested any additional SEO resources or any content. So the dream is real. This image here represents, so you can see the effort, and the one thing that I would say that we were consistently offering was poor user experience to anyone who visited our corporate website. So it was very sad. And you can see really the drop, which is the good performance coming in when we migrated. So we were really eager to see, after the fact, months later, how is this going to really net out? So does having faster websites, and especially when you're on websites that maybe aren't commerce oriented, what's the value in this? What does this mean for a corporate website? Because we're not selling on that website. And is the move to Edge and the investment in this technology really worthwhile? And how would we, in terms of business KPIs, how would we be able to explain this to finance, to stakeholders, to see how we're doing? So we told them and explained the business case of where we were going and how we thought internally the efficiencies would come to play, and they were on board with that. And then they were really kind of asking, like, but what does this mean in terms of user experience, right? And what we've seen over time is we have this decrease in operating costs, which finance very happy about. We are also, so we can start investing somewhere else. But really impressive is when we go to AWS. So we can see when we were running on WordPress over time, we're very equal. This one spike is when our corporate sites were just on life support, and AWS was spinning up new spaces to keep this going. And then we see a drop at the end where we've started to move to Edge. So this is really exciting. So in terms of costs, we can prove to our finance that the investment, this lift and shift, is really dropping our hosting costs. So we're off hosting. That's great. And we know the agency costs have gone down, but this is what I think is really exciting, is we can see this increase in click-through rate on the website. So this is Sunstar Engineering. This was the first website to go live. And we can see this incredible, although there are lower impressions, lower total clicks, we have a higher conversion rate. When we look at analytics also, we see 2 times as long visitors on the website. So this was really impactful for business, because they can see the value right here, boom. So there is absolute truth when we go to business and say, if we can provide faster, a faster experience, a more seamless experience, indeed, we can see that the time on site is longer, but the click-through is higher as well. And we're increasing in position. I don't have it on here because it kind of complicated the slides, but we're also seeing the ranking in Google go up. So this is really, really impactful for business. As well, we see the same thing on sunstar.com. So our assumption now is every site that we move over to Edge, we are going to see a difference. And this is all correlating Google Search Console with Adobe Analytics as well. And this was really, really important for business to be able to prove on sites where you don't have commerce, so to speak, you can get this full picture of how Edge Delivery Services is then serving business. So I thought this was really a great way to look at it. We're no additional investment. We're getting higher click-through rate. We're seeing our average on Google increase. And we reduced pages when we moved to sunstar.com because we took away 3 languages that were underperforming. So with a huge reduction of pages and grooming there, we're about back on par where we were before. So we're really, really excited about this. So I wanted to share that, that update there, and that's what I have in terms of where we are today. Happy for questions.
Are these Adobe Analytics screenshots, by the way, Kelly?
So these are Google Search Console.
Okay.
And what we did is when I looked at analytics, I was like, but what does that mean? How else? So we see like we're 2 times longer on page, but it was like, what else can we bring in? Like, how is this helping our rank in Google? Or what does this mean in terms of, CTR? And I thought that these analytics or this data, also bringing this in and matching it with Google Analytics is really powerful. And this alone, so the analytics alone, when we shared that with stakeholders, they were like, oh, yeah, that's nice. Somehow the numbers, it wasn't as impactful for them as seeing this increase on the bottom just go up as soon as we migrated. So Google Search Console in this respect really hit it home for business.
Yeah.
And it was something that I wasn't expecting, actually, because we use this more internally, and don't necessarily communicate this, but this was really, really powerful for business, and it got everyone asking questions, which is what we want when we come around the data, right?
Yep.
I actually have a follow-up question, Kelly.
Mhm.
Are you able to kind of double click into the various channels and see the speed transformation before and after Edge Delivery Services was implemented for desktop versus mobile, et cetera? And like, have you done any analysis just to see that? I'm more curious
Yeah,
what the
that's a great,
omni-channel impact is.
yeah, that's a great question. I probably should have put that in here.
No, I'm just,
Yeah, we
I
can.
rarely get to ask good questions. So this
Yeah,
is
we can, and
fine.
we've definitely increased on both. Well, let's put it this way. It wasn't hard for us to improve. We were on WordPress before. So no shade to anyone who loves WordPress out there, but if you're here, you might not love WordPress. But we were performing so poorly that everything was improved there. But it's true over time. I'll go back and I can answer that question. I can even, when we post this, I can go and I can follow up on that. But I would say that we've seen an increase in mobile. For sure, most of our traffic is mobile. So desktop seems to usually perform somewhat okay, but our mobile conversion is very nice too. And so that's a great point. I'm going to take that down.
No, which makes sense from what I've seen in multiple industries, unless it's a more complicated product or service or solution you're selling, the trend is significantly accelerating mobile, right? So I think that becomes even more important is to increase site speed and therefore conversion via mobile.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And also what's really interesting is, I mean, I followed up with our business users and they're even faster now. I think in March, Elena was saying, who was the business user that we featured in the presentation, and she was saying, yeah, I mean, now I can go in and I can make changes. It's gone to a half day. I mean, she's creating her own blocks. So she's literally, she can go in and create her own landing pages. She's learned how to, I need to alter a layout if we don't have the library open. So, and we're using the word-based authoring for this. We're not using the universal author yet. I mean, this is incredibly motivating and inspiring for our authors who just have no time and they're not technical. They're really communication and PR experts. So this is a PR team being able to go in and really say, you know what, I don't like this layout. And I think if I modify here, because I understand the way it works, I think I can create my own layout now, my own block. So this is really powerful. Yeah.
So that point about the like the authoring experience. So the people who were authoring this site in particular, so they were, I guess they're not people who previously were using Adobe like AEM and things like that. So they don't have the experience of that kind of authoring. They were their previous experience would have been, I guess, struggling with their WordPress setup.
Yeah, and even more, Martin. Yeah, even more. You know what their experience was? I need to call an IT person or a tech person. So their experience, even with the interface with WYSIWYG or authoring experience, was pretty much zero. So they've come from zero. And this is where I think the beauty of of document-based authoring is they're really familiar with Word, right? They're also familiar with Excel. This is just a no-brainer for them, where I think I'm more accustomed to like Universal Editor and really like this back end. So it was like, I have to say, I was kind of like, oh, document-based authoring. They love it. They absolutely love it. So I think the reality there for the business users is sometimes on the technical side, we're just really accustomed to one interface, and we've been working this 10 years, 15 years, I don't know. But for business users, it's true. I think my lesson here is like, let's listen to what they need, because while we might think on SharePoint, I don't know, or how's this going to work out, the business users are really loving the document-based authoring. So I think there's
Okay, yeah.
something
So I
else
guess
to learn from that.
So I guess that's almost a case of remembering that there's like we might be used to, because if we're working with AEM, we may be used to, and what we would see as like a business user would be a content author. So they're a person who they're used to using like the AEM sites interface and that kind of thing, and that's where they're comfortable. But actually, in your case, you have a whole set of business users who are much less used to like content management system type of things, that actually for them document-based editing is a natural progression, because they get all of the functionality they need, but it's not like they're not moving away from having previously had a good experience with content authoring. They've gone from basically not being able to do it at all to basically having full control.
Absolutely. And the collaboration, like how easy is that to, loop someone in with your commenting? I mean, they're really loving this. And I mean, they're really cranking out like landing pages and new content, and it's very, very fast. I mean, there's no friction anymore. So sky's the limit. Now they're looking at investing a lot more in content creation, also SEO, like how can we lift this in certain areas within the 3 different sites. So I think we've really moved from this maintenance to performance mindset, and business is very, very comfortable with how to now. So now they can really start accelerating on business objectives and goals, which is fabulous. I mean, I as a business technologist, I feel really happy for them, and I'm really proud. And I think this is just amazing. So I'm looking forward to also finding that we're working on a proof of concept more for the business users, right? Like the authors, looking at, okay, Universal Editor, EDS, and commerce, like what's the next step then? So we have a solution now for anyone who's really not at all familiar with technology, and they're very much more doc-based. We have that solution, and now we want to see what can we do for our brands, and how is this going to work with Universal Editor, so we can start thinking about the migration over for some other brands, and also Sunstar Gum in the future. Like, let's get that going. I mean, I think we're all really excited about it after this.
Yeah, and I guess Diane, I think, just posted a question in the chat saying, didn't the authors miss the WYSIWYG? And I think my understanding of what you were saying there is effectively these are people who didn't used to really have, or they didn't have access to a useful WYSIWYG kind of interface that they were able to use before. So effectively they're not missing something because they didn't use it. And actually this is an interface that works for them for their specific use case.
Exactly. And it was also when they I think the only thing that they could change on their own was potentially a hyperlink. That was it. And sometimes that was depending, it was even tricky. So if they were able to get their hands on that, that WYSIWYG, it was for one specific task. So it was pretty uneventful and lackluster, I have to say. So I think, yeah, again, it's going to depend on the organization, but I believe that there could be, in some cases, I mean, this is just easy. It's really, you launch, you go, you learn. We're still offering office hours for a broader team who manage once a week. We have drop-in hours. They really love that on Friday morning. So they come, they bring any questions if they're not really proficient authors, and, if they have questions to, layout. So that's been really helpful, but that's 45 minutes once a week, and nobody's asking questions. So nothing's burning, right? Once they learn and they can keep on practicing, it's going really well. So I think that's,
I guess I was going to ask the question there as to with the sort of like the learning and the onboarding process, do you find that like I guess for people who have not done this kind of any kind of authoring before, do you see it as being like a sort of an easier process to onboard someone to Edge delivery style document-based authoring as compared to if you're bringing someone into AEM into full-on content management, where there's potentially a steeper learning curve of actually how do you use the product?
You know, I'd have to say, I mean, I guess it's individual. Some people really maybe struggle with Word, could be, right? But so it's a small team. There's 3 in Europe. We have a couple in scientific affairs, let's say 5 in Europe, and then the rest are in Japan. And so far, nobody said this is just horrendous. I can't manage this. This is terrible. It's been really easy. It's been very intuitive because I think if you're in PR, if you're in communications, one of the tools you use daily is Word. So it's really, you understand formatting, you live in that world. So it's not difficult. And there just hasn't been any resistance. Now, if we were taking people who are really, they've been working with sites for 6 years, they love it, they love the interface, maybe it's difficult for them to migrate to Word. So I think that's where we really have to understand our business users and our authors and understand what's going to work. So probably some good investigation there. And I think that the universal editor for us, like if we're considering migrating sunstargum.com, it's going to be the universal editor. I'm certain it's not going to be to docs. We have 13 languages. We use, I think at this point, SharePoint, that would be difficult. For smaller sites or single language, I think it would be much easier. So I'm also thinking more about the admin side, right? How is this really going to work with languages? That's kind of a question as we move forward with document-based authoring. But in terms of pure authoring, if they can author in Word, I would go for it. And if they're not really accustomed to the WYSIWYG, I think it's a great way to bring people on board. I mean, we had 5 hours of training, 1 hour for technical, and now we follow up with just open hours, 45 minutes a week, and that's it. It's super low maintenance, which is incredible, right? So this is just a time saver all the way around for everybody.
Might be a good segue, Kimon, to talk about the question about when to use Edge Delivery Services or something along the lines of that question that you had in your pre-submitted questions. There's also one question from Devanshu in the chat about the rich text editor requirements, and some clients being worried about, how to handle they're struggling with RTE, and how does that requirement get satisfied? I don't know what your view is on those. And on my own also, I wanted to maybe touch on clients or partners working with clients who already have AEM projects going on. And there is, I'm going to post on the chat, there is a resource on Adobe Experience League that's talking about how you could start thinking about using Edge Delivery Services with Universal Editor. But before that, there's a step where you have to kind of convert your HTML rendered content and Java-based content into front-end JavaScript content before you can use it with Edge Delivery Services. And again, I'm going to post that here in the chat. But what is the overall view? Document-based authoring, I think it's proven its value, but how about existing AEM projects, many sites like you mentioned, many different languages. How do you see Edge Delivery Services being deployed so far, and what are the challenges? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, so from what I've seen, and I would say I'm limited, I don't have a full view on it. We're thinking about it internally. As soon as we have a checklist of, I would say, if we can go one-to-one, let's say with sites. So it's permissions, it's DAM, because we have sites and DAM integrated. So we need to be able to have an integrated DAM. We need to have translation is really important for us. I mean, if we go through our checklist, and through Universal Editor, everything seems one for one, EDS, Universal Editor to AEM sites. Then I think, and we use Adobe Commerce, so we have a SIF integration. So we need to make sure that that's kind of one for one. I don't see why we wouldn't move my agency or our agency, if they're out there, they're probably like, because it's going to be easier. We spend a lot of time on back end. And I'm not saying that this is for everyone. There might be really valid reasons why people stay on sites. So that's true. For us, I don't see any reason why we couldn't move, except it's another migration and it takes some planning. And we want to make sure that everything is, is up and running. I think if I were building new, I would be looking into how can I use EDS? Definitely. And so I think document-based authoring, we have, over 250 users. For me, I'm not sure that would work, and they're all accustomed to WYSIWYG. So I think it's Universal Editor, and we would move over there. So I guess it really depends. I mean, it sounds always like very cliche. It just depends on the business, but I think you have to think about what are business users comfortable with? What are your requirements? You have to know really well and understand very well what the Universal Editor can deliver today and what that roadmap is. So I'd be checking out the roadmap for EDS very closely and seeing for a migration. If it was a new build, I think I would just be like going full bore into it and figure out, and then maybe you find a different constellation. Maybe we wouldn't use Adobe Commerce, maybe use something else. I don't know. But I just see the potential is huge. But
I think it's Sorry, please go
I
ahead.
know what you're seeing, Kimon.
What I want to say is, I mean, also it's mentioned the Adobe documentation, right? Between Edge Delivery Services when it comes to document-based content management and the Universal Editor, and of course the AEM Sites Editor that we all know and love. There are some differences. There is some functionality that is not yet in the Universal Editor that is still in AEM Sites. So I guess it's all about going through documentation and managing your expectations, first of all, and seeing what fits the purpose. And I think, especially for the use cases you had, I guess you saw that Edge Delivery Services was there for you and had the features that you required for the particular web properties.
And some of them not right when we launched, right? So there wasn't, assets wasn't integrated. I mean, but we're seeing the rollout so fast that, I mean, it was almost like weekly we were seeing new features being rolled in. So I think they're moving this forward extremely fast. And that's why I think also keeping an eye on the roadmap is really important and understanding what exactly is coming and tuning into the resources. And I think the teams who are working with Edge and trying to get as much information out there, but the promise is there for sure. I have no doubt that this is coming. And I mean, we see just even through the experiment with and monitoring of the Sunstar websites. I mean, our teams in our markets that are on sites, they're like, we want that performance. We also want to see that lift. So it's really impressive, right? Like our team also, we would like to be able to deliver that. And it's just difficult. It's a little more difficult on sites because we know that there's just a lot of weight sometimes that's carried. So not to say that the sites can't perform well, but it's just like, be nice to get away from that and then be able to innovate faster for business, right? Not spend maybe the budget on the back end, but be able to do other cool things.
I guess, would you recommend like the approach effectively you've taken is effectively the sort of experimenting with EDS in a specific site which had was sort of simpler and a smaller number of users. They had a specific trouble point in your case, but the kind of effectively it's almost sort of proof of concept in production of the thing, rather than necessarily saying, okay, we have our existing everything, we're doing everything in sites and saying, let's do that first. Maybe the route is let's get on board with EDS, understand how it works and actually live it. And then think about, okay, now do we extend that out? Do we replace sites with Universal Editor and EDS, or actually do we keep that on sites because it's working, and maybe stick with the specific sites where you've maybe got like microsites or specific use case sites which are less complex that maybe fit more to document-based editing, and actually have that, I guess, have a mix where actually maybe it is valid to have a mixture of both, that you don't have to be all one or all the other. You can reasonably be doing both things at the same time.
I think so. And I think that's how we saw it. It was an opportunity to, one, get rid of a dreadful experience for our end users, and also like for any visitors to sunstar.com. I mean, it was miserable. It was taking up to 12 seconds to load. I mean, it's crazy, right? So it really hit that pain point, and it was exactly that moment. We thought, you know what, we can actually put something in production that remedies an ailment out there, and we can have a proof of concept that we can monitor and test and see how this grows, because it's so new at no risk, and it's all the same SKU. So, you know, we have sites, why not use it? And I do see it as, wow, what a great opportunity for marketers, for scientific affairs, for communications. I mean, we know that agencies love microsites. So now we can spin something up really fast. We have that governance. It's under our hood. We know what's going on. And I think it's powerful, even if that alone. And then, yeah, I mean, depending on the business, I mean, you know, maybe if we were starting new, we would do something totally different, right? But so now it's this migration of, you know, over 10,000 pages, 33 websites. So we have to think of that more, but this is proven to be a really, really great concept. And we hope to have within the next, I think we said by the beginning of Q3, we want to, or beginning of Q4, we want to have our proof of concept for EDS and commerce in place. So we can see and just have basic function, and then watch that and then see, how can we use this? I mean, yeah, so it's great. I think you can hit 2 for 1, and it's nice. And I think business likes to see this also, right? It reassures them, and it's fun to grow with it. Definitely, like finance loves to see it. We're not going out and just blindly investing. We're building this business case in-house and this use case. So it's great communication tool for that, also leveraging technology, so many different technologies that we're already invested in. That's really nice as well.
So Kelly, I have one question. I wanted to pick it up. So I've been dealing with some of the clients who really wanted to start working on the Edge Delivery Services, but there is always a trade-off between two things. One is the performance, second is the flexibility, how we are able to customize the things or author the things, specifically when it comes to rich text editor, like you can select the colors, use the bullets, and maybe if you wanted to highlight a specific part of the text, you can do it over there. But over here, we have everything going through the variations, and that's how we try to do it. At the same time, the layout shifts and everything that is being provided by editor. So at times I see a trade-off over there in terms of the flexibility, or in terms of how you edit the whole pages at the same time, versus the performance of the pages. So I think this is how we are really staying, even by talking to our clients, because at times we see them being worried about losing the flexibility, but gaining onto the performance. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it? Because you have already completed the project.
So for us, we haven't, I mean, we've seen the gain in performance and also like usability. We haven't, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's been no negative side effects, like in rich text editing, for example. I mean, we can do everything word-based that we could through WYSIWYG. And we could do more even if we wanted, I think, because you're in full control. So both are going kind of hand in hand, and we haven't had any cases yet where anything's gone rogue or anyone's gone crazy, or when anyone said, I used to be able to have like a strike through here, or I don't know, like trying to think something like, I want pink text here. It's not in our guidelines, couldn't do it, but the authors really can, they're in full control and flexibility without, I think what the beauty is, you know, sometimes we can tinker with certain areas on websites, and then it can impact performance, but there hasn't been anything that our authors have done that have impacted performance whatsoever. And they haven't really said like, I feel handcuffed, I can't do anything, right? So I think yeah, I think what was really impressive with EDS also is, if you look at the documentation, it's so thorough for this framework. It's incredible. I mean, the documentation they put forward is what you see, and what they're promising is everything that you can get. And yeah, I mean, yeah, on both ends, it's been positive. I'm trying to think of really what some of the negative aspects are, and we haven't run into them yet.
Have you had any issues with governance as far as you have a lot of different authors? Has that been an issue at all?
Yeah, no, because it's we use SharePoint permissions. So
Yeah.
we could set that up. Now, I don't know how this is with Google. Because you can run this with on G Drive, Google Docs.
You can apply the same permissions.
Yeah, and I'm not a big Google user. For me, it's all one big dump. I
Yeah.
use it personally, so it's like I can't even imagine. But it's very granular. You can get extremely granular. So maybe for I don't know, like sometimes SharePoint can get a bit complicated, right, with permissions, but all permissions can be complicated, but no, very granular. So you can really control that. I was worried about that too, but no problem there either.
Do you do anything in the way of sort of like workflow, sort of like approvals and those kind of things, or is that, because I guess that's something that is, I guess, fundamentally a different way of working, that you don't have the workflow processes that you would have in a traditional AEM site setup?
Yeah, no, we don't. I mean, there are different processes outside of the authoring, but not within. And that would be something I think that can be implemented. But yeah, okay, it's true. That's one area if you're working with sites. I mean, there are a lot of workflows in there. So again, it comes to the complexity and what do you need, right? So yeah, we haven't run into that yet, but we're not looking for that either, I guess. What does work really well though, that works better now than it did when we were on WordPress, I know that, is just being able to collaborate with other authors or so in our business, so scientific affairs is really important, having them, validate any content or any claims and being able just to pull them in just simply. And then you can keep versions, right? So you can have version controls or you can see what's happening, but it's pretty straightforward. But again, that might be something that might be a business requirement that someone needs. And then that might be also, yeah, to be looked into. These are pretty.
Yeah, and I guess you're kind of almost, it kind of comes back to that point, doesn't it, of the mapping the features and functionality of the product to what are your actual requirements. So in this case, like if you've got an absolute hard requirement that we need to have some complex managed workflow process, that isn't something I guess EDS is going to directly deliver, but there might be other tooling that you might need to build around that, either within SharePoint or some other tool that's going to interact with that to give you that functionality that you might need, or you might say actually right now it doesn't have that, so that might be a blocker to using it in a specific case.
Yeah, exactly. And we could do a more in-depth deep dive. I mean, we didn't do that at the summit either. We could do a walkthrough of how we're set up. I mean, if that's interesting, we could do an office hours and just walk through. And I'm thinking about this also because I'm looking at Dayan's question here about custom block components or out of the box. We have both, Dayan. I would say, I don't know, I want to say 90% are out of the box. There were a few custom ones that we had to create. But what's really cool is like when you open up EDS in author-based, document-based authoring, you have this whole library on the side. So you just see all of your components. So simple and it's laid out so nicely. And this was a lift and shift. So we have a lot of components. I mean, this is something I think if we had done a redesign, we would have less. We have a lot. But out of the box is working really well. So that could be something also we could do a walk through that. And the data, I don't have the data on hand, but we can go through that also on another one if that's of interest to the community.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that's also touches on the point you were giving earlier around the rate of change or the rate of feature appearing. Things like having the blocks available and the DAM integration, things like that are all things which potentially are things that are new since people may have originally looked at Edge Delivery, like when it was still called Franklin and things like that. People may have looked at it then and thought actually it's quite limited, but there's a whole load of pieces of functionality that have appeared that it may be worth taking another look at it, look at what are the features now compared to a couple of months ago, even that there may be new things that have come in which might tip the balance.
Yeah, we should do that. I think it's worthwhile. And I'm just even thinking out of the box, like dynamic media. We're using dynamic media on the sites. You know, that wasn't available in the beginning. And I think that's just within the last couple of months. And that's so we have on-site video handling. So they don't have to click through to YouTube, right? And so that's really increasing engagement there. And that wasn't available when EDS launched and when it was Franklin. So indeed, the pace of innovation is really rapid. And like big hats off to the engineers for keeping that going. Definitely. Mhm. Let's see if there are any other questions in there.
Maybe you can shed some light on specific, let's say, organizational topics in terms of what was the average, let's say, ramp-up time or learning curve for the content editors to, you know, get at least an extent familiar and autonomous. And the second part, from the technical part of it, like from your team, I guess there is a bit of a switching immediate skills required. How did you see this change, and what would be any hints, let's say, for upcoming such implementations?
Yeah, it's a good point. So what we did is when we were onboarding, we had thinking now, so we had one person who was dedicated to answering questions and QA. So we had one person internally who was liaising with Adobe as they were developing, and he was kind of checking everything in Git and also making sure pages looked okay. And then that would be passed on to what we called our like internal digital success manager. And then she would be ensuring that all of the content was one for one, because this is a one for one, right? And so during that process alone, which was really great, the team was learning how to use and the core team that would be serving customers was learning the ins and outs. So they were very familiar with EDS when we launched. And that might be different too if you have everything outsourced to an agency and then all of a sudden it's handed over and then you have to learn, right? So I think this learning by doing and being embedded in the team is definitely a success factor. I think that's really helpful. And then, so it was a really small team. It was Elena, who was the business owner. It was a woman named Kayo, who was our digital success manager. And then it was Dayan on our side, who was really the technical lead for this. And the three of them really worked arm in arm. So by the time it launched, they had this out. And then we had a series of 5 business user trainings. And we kind of broke it down to, first of all, the essentials, like what is EDS, really basic, and what are basic components, like what, click here, everything is stored on SharePoint. This is, the basic understanding of web document, click here, you see that it's published. This is how you edit. So some basics. And then over 5 different sessions, we kind of went deeper and deeper, like how to edit a page. That was most important because the pages were all, they were already created. So really editing, how do you edit what's there? They didn't want to change anything. And then it was, how do you change something? And then it was, how do you create a new page? And then it was kind of more advanced, like what if you want to, I don't know, add metadata, et cetera, et cetera. And so this was 5 one-hour sessions. And after that, they were ready to go. So that was it. And then we follow up with these 45-minute open hours. And in the beginning, for the first month, we had open hours, I think it was 3 days a week. And then we dropped it to 2 days a week. And then everyone was like, we don't need it. So it was like, okay. And then we brought them back again because we found that although end users, the business users were saying maybe they didn't need it, it was also nice to show them what was changing. So we've brought it back, I think, just for good adoption and enablement. And then we had a 1 hour, this is technically what you need to know, developers like agencies who are going to support. Here's the documentation for one. I think this is the first time we've ever been able to hand over Adobe documentation, and it's been like, it's all there. So this was really incredible. And then it was an hour because they get it. It's mostly all front end. So they get it right away. They read, and then the agency who was supporting some of the business, they got it right away. I mean, it's just so light touch. And I would say, so we were fortunate to work with Adobe on this lift and shift. And I think the important thing is that first website is to do it well. Make sure that it's really clean, it's implemented well, because that's kind of the blueprint for others. So that would be one thing I think on the technical side. You just want to make sure the agency is really comfortable or you have a really good partner to work with, because you want that first website just to be very clean. And if you go and look in the code and inspect the code on the Sunstar website, it's really clean. I mean, it's impressive. It's kind of a joy to look at. So I think that also serves as a really good blueprint moving forward for other partners we work with, so they can kind of compare. So that was important. And then internally, it's just getting them using. And then having, I think the open hours, just being there to answer questions, really important. But this is a very, very, I would just say light touch training. It's very intuitive. Let's see how it goes with the universal editor. But
that was one of the questions that I added in the chat now, and it's been a question that's been asked before in other sessions. I don't think there's a definitive answer, but maybe that's one of the things that, you know,
can we reuse?
working on and massaging. Yeah, the question is, you know, we have traditional AEM components. We're managed services, for example. We want to look at edge delivery services. Is there a need to create a wrapper component to have the availability of those AEM components to use in edge delivery services, and kind of have the page editor experience that we have now in edge delivery services? I think that's one of the questions that I get asked all the time.
That's a good question. So I know they're not compatible. Like we can't take what we have from sites, and a wrapper is it's a good idea. I think, I don't know. In some cases, if it can be, maybe if it's paired with also like a brand update or a brand refresh, it's worthwhile for a complete rewrite and a redo.
So like,
I would kind of worry about wrappers, you know.
Yeah.
Something in the middle, but it's true that you can't, there are two things that, as far as I know so far, maybe this changes in the future. You can't take the components now and just lift and ship those. And you also can't combine universal editor and document based.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of clean versions of each. And I guess that makes sense. And also because we were thinking even, you know, there are sections of the Sunstar Gum website I'd swap out right now and just put, you know, let's just put document-based authoring. It's like, yeah, you can't do that.
Right.
So it's all or nothing, but I mean, it makes sense. And I think it would be a lot of spaghetti for business users, and, you know, so yeah.
Yeah,
I
Keeman
think
posted the same resource that I had posted earlier in the chat. That's the only resource that I've found that's talking about that and the converter, and trying to use your HTML based and Java based components, slowly converting them to front end JavaScript. Yeah.
So I'll add one thing to this, because when you're talking about components and blocks, you're sort of decoupling from the database, but essentially the database is a major part of this. So let's go to an AEM component. Where does the AEM component store its data? It goes into the JCR. So it's part of AEM, right? Now blocks have a couple different ways you can do them, right? So you have blocks with Edge Delivery, which essentially stores in the document, right? So you can't move back and forth between the two. What you could do, and this is where the idea of port is based on the definition. If you're porting the HTML into a block, well then sure, why not, right? You can create a block that does exactly what your component does. But can you take the component as is and put it and use it? No, because fundamentally it doesn't work the same way. The database is different. Now keep in mind, then you move into Universal Editor, and with Universal Editor, there's two different options. You could either go with blocks, right? So essentially you're running a blocks project, the same blocks or similar blocks that you would be using in Edge Delivery, but it's being governed in AEM, right? So you can actually create a whole project in AEM that uses blocks and stores in AEM, but it's rendering through Edge Delivery. It gets really interesting. But again, the database is different. And then you can actually have your normal core components. You can have a typical AEM component working with the Universal Editor, right? That's actually where they started. So the Universal Editor initially said you have an AEM component, HTL, you can actually use it with an HTL. It sounds a little redundant now because you have the dialogues, which is what you use today to author components in AEM. But on top of that, you can use Universal Editor. to me, it's not necessarily the best use of your time because you already have the dialogues. I think
Right.
Universal Editor becomes really practical if you want to create almost like a block-based project, whether it's within AEM or not within AEM.
That's interesting. I mean, you know, we could. That's interesting. I mean, we could take that and try that actually.
Yep.
Might have like a little side project of just side projects here, just trying things and then presenting like results, experiments. Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought that. Yeah. Okay. I mean, so it's
Kimon,
yeah,
do we
three different
all-
options in there. That's a lot to think about, Rami. That's a lot at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
what
I
I
guess
do.
that's
And
almost
now,
the-
and now I'm going to end the call.
Thanks for that. That was-
right
I
now,
was
we're
like,
at kind of a stage
oh,
where like EDS,
Yeah.
I guess, is like Edge Delivery has kind of reached the point now where
Yep.
like document-based editing is kind of, I guess you would say maybe it's mature now, right?
Mhm.
And now the question comes as to, okay, how do we leverage the delivery piece of Edge Delivery Services with the sort of our old style way of authoring, and how do we transition, and how do we actually give everybody the delivery mechanism of Edge, but with the authoring experience that they're used to? And I guess maybe that we're now into almost there's maybe still some journey to go on that, but clearly we've seen Edge Delivery Services matured in one direction. It now just
Yeah.
there's maybe some more work to do and more features and functions to come, but it's clearly like there's a roadmap for that to be happening, and that's like the next stage in the journey.
I think that's a nice way to state it, Martin.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a great way. And I can say that, and again, by September-ish, I'm not sure, someone will be working this summer while we're all vacationing, but I think by September we'll have also a nice proof of concept that we can show. And I'll bring this back to our team also and talk to them about this and see their thoughts and see if we can't like spin up some small like experiments and then share them also. It's really interesting. And then we'll be sure to rewind this 5 times and listen to what Rami had to say.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Because it went like kidding.
I just realized you couldn't see me as I was saying all that stuff.
We could hear you, and it was enough.
That's the main thing, yeah.
Oh wow, depends how I'm gonna take this. It's enough just to hear your voice. Mute. Anyways.
No, it was good information. So we just
Yeah,
have to
really good. Yeah, it's just good food for thought. Great.
So yeah, for the recording part, for anyone who's going to be watching this after we end the call, feel free to share this if you think it's useful. Worth mentioning, it's the very first EMEA session. So there's going to be more interesting stuff. These hardworking AEM champions in Europe are going to bring more stuff to present. And Kelly showed the code earlier for joining our YouTube playlist and joining this chapter. So you get updates on future sessions. And if you're watching us from YouTube playlist, thank you for watching this video. And for anyone who joined today, thank you. And yeah, I'll give it back to you guys for any closing remarks. And yeah, these are the
So nice
the
and
only other
sharing.
thing it's worth mentioning is if you're watching this before the 21st of June and you feel like you'd like to be part of the AEM Champions program, the champion submissions are still open until the 21st of June.
Definitely.
That's a great point. Yes. Apply. We should have dropped the link in here. We can drop it on the office hours. It's on the office hours, right? So if you QR code office hours,
Yes.
then you can get to that.
There is a banner on the top of the link to it. So yeah.
You can join us because this is a great group and we have fun.
It is.
And we blow
We
our
do.
minds like it's great. Nah, it's super fun. Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Kelly. It was amazing.
Thank you, Rami,
It was
too.
great to be
Thank you
with you
very
all.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah. See you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.